Have you heard of the devil's bargain? I hear he takes a tasty cup. He beckoned me toward the garden, just to show me there the gates remain shut. Message from the goddess. I need to make her more aware. I'm more wrapped up in my nonsense. She needs to know I really care. Mood is wavering from the highest to the lowest measure. My spirit's drunk on angel's share. I've got one foot on the platform and another in my mouth. I need a spiritual anesthetic, or else I guess I'm headed south. Save some whiskey for my angel, if she's even really there. Down it quickly, I'm so fragile. My hope evaporated. Moon is wavering from the highest to the lowest measure. My spirit's drunk on angel's share.
I've not put the microphone on, so there we go. Rookie mistake. Welcome back to the fourth episode of iMatters with myself, Martin Day MP, and my colleague John McNally MP. We just heard the recording that we played at the end of the last show from Kirsty Heggie, one of the number of tracks she recorded it for us at the Calendar Studios. An absolutely first-class piece of music. It was commented by a number of viewers after the last show that why did we leave it as an afterthought at the end? So we thought we would rectify that tonight and play it at the beginning. So we'll have a few more of her songs over the coming weeks, and we really look forward to interviewing her live as well in one of the coming shows. So more to follow from Kirsty in the future. But tonight we're really delighted to have with us two wonderful ladies from Kidney Care UK. We have Judith Connell, who's the Policy Officer for Scotland, and we have Fiona Loud, who's the Policy Director for Kidney Care UK, and they're going to tell us quite a bit about the whole subject.
Thank you very much, Martin, and Probably the most obvious opening question is to yourself, Fiona, is to tell us, what can you tell us a bit about what our kidneys do, about a wee bit about kidney disease and what we can do to look after our kidneys in a better way. So over to you, Fiona.
Thank you very much indeed, and thank you for inviting us on this evening. And what a lovely song that was to listen to open up with this evening. So, yes, your kidneys, they are vital organs. They keep us well, they look after us, and many people don't realise they're just busy working away. So we have two of them, and if you were to put your hands around your waist and then turn your hands to your back, under your ribs, and I'm doing it now, though no one can actually see my back, but that's where they are. And they're about the size of a fist, and it's pretty handy that we have the two of them. They keep us well, and they pump around 180 litres of blood every day around the body, which I think is an interesting old factoid there. And they look after your blood pressure, they look after your bones, and although it's a bit basic to get around to it at this time of the evening, they also help you to wee. And lots of people, well, they produce urine for you, and lots of people don't know that that's one of the main functions of the kidneys. So what you drink is filtered, and then some of it is used to look after you, and some of it comes out of your body. So that's a little bit about what they do. When they don't work, though, harmful waste will build up in your body, your blood pressure might rise, and you might build up some excess fluid. So people don't really know that, and we can talk a bit more about kidney disease. So it's quite common. It can affect anyone, and it needs treatment. And what we want to sort of chat about tonight is how your audience can look after their kidneys, keep themselves well and fit, and then of course the support that we, Kidney Care UK, will offer to people who are affected by kidney disease. So just a few little tips before we get into it about the kind of thing you might want to do to keep yourself fit and healthy would be, because I mentioned already about the fluids, would be just to keep drinking. That's fluid. I don't necessarily mean alcohol. I just mean water, tea, juice, things like that. So keep a good fluid intake. So that's one tip to look after. Eat a healthy, low salt diet. And if you can, have a non-smoking lifestyle. That helps you to look after your blood pressure, and just be aware of any medications you take. So if you ever go to the chemist, you go to the pharmacist and you've been diagnosed with kidney disease, make sure your pharmacist knows that you have, because it's just worth checking your medications there as well. So really, and the biggest cause of kidney disease, or one of the biggest ones, is having diabetes. They're very, very closely linked. And I mentioned already blood pressure too. So really, if you look after your kidneys, just drink well, eat well, keep a bit of exercise going, they'll tend to look after you, unless you're unlucky and you have, for example, a genetic condition or some other things that could happen to you, or you build up high blood pressure through to another condition as well. So there's some top tips there to keep you healthy, to look after your lifestyle, but they really are fantastic essential organs that keep us going and keep us well, and they just carry on working in the background, and hardly anyone knows that they're there. So I know, so you've all got so everybody here, hopefully everyone listening's got at least two of them to look after themselves, although very occasionally some people are born with one, and very occasionally some people might even have an extra one, or that's extremely rare. So just a few extra little bits there. And just to finish off my piece here, just to keep everyone sort of listening up here, there's about 3.5 million people in the UK who will have some level of kidney disease, and about 1 million of those will not have been diagnosed with it. And here in Scotland, there's at least 3% of the population that will have sort of medium to advanced levels of kidney disease. So it's definitely something that will affect your viewers, and that's what Kidney Care UK is there to do, is to help to inform you about that, to chat to you about all that, and answer some of your questions as well. So I hope that's a good intro.
Yeah, that's much. We've had one question already, so I will just bring it in. I've put it up on screen. Anne-Marie Barclay's asked, now that we are more aware of health issues, aware of healthy eating, the dangers of smoking and too much alcohol, are kidney disease cases decreasing? And if not, what is the cause of the increase?
Well, I think that's a very good question, actually. And unfortunately, at the moment, they are not decreasing. Kidney disease are not decreasing. Diabetes itself is going up, and alongside diabetes, kidney disease will be going up as well. So about 40% of the people who have kidney failure will have it due to diabetes. And that is, while people might be aware of some of those things that Anne-Marie's just mentioned, unfortunately, our population health isn't the best it could be. And so we could do a lot better on healthy eating and some of those general causes that will increase the risks to you of things going wrong with your heart, with your blood, bring out your blood pressure, and they can all put pressure on your veins and arteries, which can affect your kidneys, unfortunately, as well. So actually, every day, 20 people in the country will have kidney failure, and about 3 out of those 20 will not know it was going to come along. And what we want to do is make sure that far fewer people end up with kidney failure, because there's many more things we can do far earlier on in the system.
Yeah, no, that's smashing. We've had a second question, but I know we've got a video to play, but we'll maybe just fit the second question in before we go to the video. And it's saying, Hashbury Stumble has asked us, does the system of organ donation in Scotland and England differ in any way?
So that's again another great question, and actually there's a bit of an explanation to that, which I was going to do later on. So basically we have very, very similar systems. They've got slightly different names. It's called deemed authorisation in Scotland, and it's presumed consent in the rest of the country. In effect, they are the same, but there are a few small differences about the age. It's 18 in the rest of the country, 16 in Scotland, and if we want to talk about that a bit more later, and the amazing positive thing that organ donation is, we'd be delighted to do that.
Brilliant. Okay, so we've got the first video to play. I'll just get that.
So this is just a little overview of kidney disease and some of the things I've just talked about, I hope.
Yep.
Most people don't realise the vital role their kidneys play until they stop working. The kidneys get rid of excess water and toxins. They make red blood cells, regulate blood pressure, and keep your bones strong. Almost 3 million people in the UK have chronic kidney disease. 61,000 of those are being treated for kidney failure, with 21 new cases diagnosed every day. Diabetes and high blood pressure are the most common causes. There is no cure. Almost 30,000 people are currently undergoing dialysis because their kidneys have failed. Over 5,000 are waiting for transplants. But around 45,000 patients will die prematurely every year because of the disease. That's enough to fill the Royal Albert Hall 9 times over. If you'd like to find out more about kidney disease, please visit the Kidney Care UK website.
Oh, that's certainly chilling when you hear there is no cure. I was going to ask Judith, what is the impact for people living with kidney disease, especially that terrifying thought that there is no cure just haunts me when I hear it.
Well, unfortunately, living with chronic kidney disease is life-changing and can make every day a challenge for people with kidney disease and turn someone's world upside down. It is, we said, a life-threatening condition that never goes away. And kidney disease affects and sometimes governs every aspect of a person's life, be it impacting on their physical health, mental health, economic health and well-being, and their relationship with others. For example, in terms of economic implications, kidney disease can impact on your ability to work. So there's various barriers to employment for people. And for example, in dialysis, the frequency and length of treatment, the physical toll of the treatment, the intense fatigue associated with dialysis and chronic kidney disease really compound financial insecurity. And just like everyone else, the cost of living crisis has hit people living with kidney disease hard in the UK, and the increased cost of buying food. We've got to remember that kidney patients do have to eat specific diets and specific foods for their health and well-being. And for those on home dialysis, the cost of running a dialysis machine and keeping their home warm, there's increased energy costs there. And in terms of physical health, people with kidney disease may develop things like high blood pressure, anemia, weakness in bones, poor nutritional health, nerve damage, and kidney disease also increases the risk of having heart and blood vessel disease. So, and in terms of mental health, having kidney disease is a risk factor for poor mental well-being, and it can be exhausting and stressful for people living with kidney disease, their carers, their families, their loved ones. So common feelings and experiences among people with kidney disease are depression. Unfortunately, up to 1 in 3 people living with kidney disease will experience depression at some point. Anxiety, stress are very common, and unfortunately some people have considered self-harm and suicide, and some unfortunately have taken their own lives. And it's mental health and well-being has really only been exacerbated by the pandemic and the new challenges and fears for kidney patients and what they've faced, and their feelings of isolation and loneliness have, for example, been exacerbated, as a result of shielding and fears over getting very ill or dying from COVID itself, which unfortunately some kidney patients have, sadly. So, and the impact on families and carers, mental health and well-being is immense too. Caregivers have an increased risk of stress, depression, anxiety, and poor quality of life in the course of providing care and support for their loved ones. And the deterioration of family relationships, stress, and social isolation are frequently encountered by caregivers too. So I think there's a little video you're going to play kind of about patient and family experience of kidney disease and the impact that this has had on their lives too.
Could I just quickly jump in there, guys?
Yeah.
Would it just be okay? Just one thing to say. What Judith has very, very well talked about is what it's like if you have kidney failure. But one of the reasons that we are talking to everybody today is that there are early stages of chronic kidney disease, and that's where we want to make sure that people know, so that kidney disease itself is harmful, but in some cases we can do something about it to prevent it from deteriorating. So that's the kind of slightly more positive message to take out of that. And there's about 5,500 people in Scotland who are either on dialysis or are living with a transplant. So just to set that a little bit additionally in context.
Yeah. That's quite a lot. It's a frightening number. We've had I've just trying to squeeze in another question before we play the video. Charles Smith has asked, are there any obvious signs when kidneys are malfunctioning? What should people be looking out for?
Shall I take that one, Judith?
Yeah.
Okay. So I mean, some people will say it's a silent condition because they're non-specific, but it's not that silent when you're kind of going through that. So, much earlier on, you could fatigue is quite a strong sign of that, but obviously that's not very specific. You can also get quite swollen, so you can get quite swollen ankles, for example. And you may also have very low iron, which Judith talked about anemia. That means your sort of iron levels are very low. And there are things you can do about that, which will help you to get a little bit more energy, even if that much earlier in the day. So it's really that kind of thing. So it's sort of swelling of your ankles. After a while, you might become quite breathless. That fatigue, and one of the other signs is itching across your middle, because that means your kidneys aren't getting rid of the waste that they should. So that can mean you have quite a lot of itching. So a lot of people with kind of earlier newly diagnosed kidney disease will come onto our groups and ask us, and so kind of like a newbie question, why am I itching? And that's the reason. So as Judith said, you have to sort of manage some of your diets and take your medications for that as well. So I hope that helps a little bit.
Yeah, that's very, very informative. So we'll now play the second video.
3.5 million people living with kidney disease and 1 million more potentially undiagnosed. The profile of kidney disease really needs to be higher.
Not a lot of people know about kidney disease. No one really, your family or your friends or your work colleagues, they don't know about the implications that it has on every part of your life. It has implications on your economic, your personal life, your parenting, how you parent, your sexual life. So many marriages break down. It affects every part of your being, and people don't know that. It must be very, very challenging to be a kidney patient. I fully respect them.
Andrew's life, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, is dialysis. Both our families, never seen nothing like it. They can't believe it, didn't know this is what. I said, well, we didn't. We're as much in the dark as everybody else. And you don't realise how much it has an impact on your life.
I've been on dialysis 20 years. I was just shocked. It totally, your whole world changes. I planned to have children, I wanted to get married, and all that seemed to change, and I was told that I wouldn't be able to have children. So it was quite devastating at the time, and a lot to get my head round.
The word that I could use to describe kidney disease is relentless.
Tiring.
Life-changing.
Soul-destroying. I would describe it. The only other way of putting it.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Very powerful, very strong and simple, clear messages coming from families that are actually experiencing what's going on there. So in the second part of this, going to yourself, Judith, and I wonder if you could tell us a wee bit about who Kidney Care UK are and what they do and how they support people with kidney diseases. If you could just outline what you're actually doing, Judith, please.
Okay, I'll start off, and maybe Fiona might like to take over at some point too. If she's, we were founded in 1975, and we are the UK's leading kidney patient support charity. And our vision really is that no one faces kidney disease alone. And our mission is to improve the quality of life for everyone affected by kidney disease. So we support people with kidney disease and their families through a number of avenues, for example, through fundraising, practical support, emotional support, financial support, and campaigning for change. So, for example, in terms of emotional support, we have our counselling team, and counselling is available for patients and their families unable to access counselling services in their local renal unit, and counselling is free. And we currently have a team of 6 counsellors, and that counselling is a mixture of telephone and online counselling. And we currently offer up to 6 sessions post an initial assessment. And we also have our young adult kidney group, and this was established in 2016, and it's a patient-led peer support group, and it's specifically for patients aged 18 to 30, and we currently have over 850 members of that young adult kidney group. We have our Facebook patient support group, over 11,000 members. And in terms of financial support, we have a grants team. For example, we offer patient grants for help with domestic bills, for example, be it helping with the cost of an outstanding bill such as gas, electricity, water, car insurance and heating costs, or we have grants to help with household items, so maybe the purchase of items such as washing machines, cookers, beds, carpets, grants that help with travel and motor expenses, for example, in terms of travel costs, possibly to cover or assist with hospital appointments to travelling a long way, and you've got some financial support from your renal unit, or costs of car repairs to attend those appointments. And we have grants for further education and training, so we may be able to help cover the cost of university college fees or IT equipment for education, and give support for courses in enabling people to return to work. And we have grants towards holiday and respite breaks too. And we have emergency assistance grants, and they are, for example, as the name says, for an emergency, such as provision of clothing and food. And we also have our patient support and advocacy officers too, that we've got 20 in the UK, 2 of which are in Scotland. And our trained advocacy officers can help with issues around treatment, choice, patient transport and benefit concerns. We have the online benefit hub and online benefit calculator. So they're there to help patients all the way through, for example, their benefits journey, from finding what they can claim to assisting with forms to tribunals if need be. So, and in terms of our campaigning work for change, this is undertaken by our policy team, which Fiona and ourselves are part of that policy team. And our policy team work and campaign at a local, national and government level to improve health and care services for kidney patients. And everything we do really is about ensuring that the patient voice is at the heart of local and national decision making. And on top of that, we have on various kind of online information and literature and resources. So covering many aspects of kidney disease. So, for example, including the conditions themselves, diagnosis, treatment, and practical information about life with kidney disease. So those are just some of the things that we do kind of offer.
That's quite a lot.
Yes, it is quite a lot. Trying to condense that all down.
So I think the message is to our audience: get stuck in. Basically, go to kidneycareuk.org and have a look for that stuff later on if you're interested.
Yeah, that's great, and I think the work you're doing is absolutely fantastic. We've got another couple of questions, so we'll just fire them up through. Yes, Kathy is asking, for viewers living with type 2 diabetes, apart from maintaining good blood glucose control, what other advice would you give to help lessen the risk of future kidney-related health issues?
So thanks very much. Really good question, actually. Look after your blood pressure. You can most doctors have a blood pressure cuff. You can go in there and ask to have a look at what your blood pressure is, or you can buy them very cheaply at Boots or wherever, your local chemist. And also go to your annual, you should be getting annual diabetes checks. So your annual diabetes check should include a check on your kidney function. And when you go along for that, just ask your practice nurse, whoever's dealing with you, what's my kidney function look like? So that people just, that people are keeping an eye on it, and you can learn a bit about your own kidney function as well, because as we said, those two are unfortunately quite well linked. So it's a great question, and I'd encourage everyone who has diabetes to do that. And there's another one, I think, isn't there?
Another one, yeah. Keith Barclay has asked, do genetics have any influence in the likelihood of kidney disease, or is it more lifestyle related?
So again, really good question, actually. So so it's a combination of those things. So for some people, it will be related, and it's not just necessarily lifestyle. It could be related, but it could be related to some of the other diseases you've got. If you have a heart problem, that can relate to you having a kidney problem, as an example. If you've had a stroke, if you have high blood pressure. But at the same time, there are also people, probably about, I'm going to say very specific numbers, about 12% of the people who do have, kind of later stage kidney disease will be people who've got it for genetic reasons as well. So there might be, there's lots and lots of different rare diseases, and they might affect that as well. And there's one other cause that I haven't really mentioned up to now, which is something called acute kidney injury, which isn't when someone, you're trying to keep fit and someone punches you in the kidney playing rugby or something like that. It's actually if you get poorly for some other reason, if you have a really bad gastrointestinal attack and you've already got some other condition, that might also bring your kidneys down. And then that's the situation actually where if that's picked up quite quickly, that can resolve. So it's not the same as chronic kidney disease, acute kidney injury, which is a sudden decline in your kidneys because you've got some other infection going on. And people might get it if they're on chemotherapy or something like that as well, or they've got some other problems, and then you get kind of an infection. That can be where that can go wrong. So that needs to be identified really quickly and treated really quickly with medications, for example. And in those instances, people may then end up with a level of kidney disease, but it may not get any worse as long as people keep an eye on it for for the rest of your time, basically. So it's quite a long answer, but there's a few things in there. So thank you, Keith, for that question.
Yeah, no, it's great, and I'm really pleased that we've got questions coming in.
Yeah,
so
thank you, everyone, for that.
Keep firing them in, and as we always like to say, start them with a Q if you can, because it makes it easier for us to spot them in the various chats, because we are actually our own technical support as well as trying to do this. So it does make life easier for us to try and answer as many questions as we can if we spot them. Earlier on, there's a bit of mention of the added costs that people have of living with kidney disease. So it seems to me that we're in a very deep cost of living crisis. Mm-hmm. Would you like to explain some of the problems that people are facing with the disease now?
Great, Judith, that's you, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. I did start to touch on that earlier about the cost of living crisis and the impact that it's had on people with kidney disease in the UK. And the cost of living has had an immense detrimental impact on, as I mentioned before, the physical health, mental health and economic health of people with kidney disease and their families. And we most recently did in November last year, our Cost of Staying Alive report. Key findings of that report suggest that I'm going to throw some stats at you, but it's important to remember that all these stats are an individual person experiencing this. Some of you may know some of those people, and personally yourselves. So key findings of that suggest that 98% of kidney patients in our report were worried about the rising cost of living, and 60% were worried about it all the time. And in terms of physical health, nearly 79% reported that rising cost of living was now having an impact on their physical health. And in terms of their mental health, nearly 87% reported that it was currently having an impact on their mental health. And in terms of heat, around 87% said that they'd turned the heating down in their homes, and 65% said that they'd not replace shoes or clothes when they become worn out or too small. And in terms of kind of food and eating and preparing meals, 44% had missed meals, with unfortunately 1 in 10 saying they skipped them on a regular basis, and 68% were worried that they wouldn't be able to feed their families. And another issue that I brought up earlier that really follows on from the pandemic itself, the cost of living crisis has exacerbated the social isolation that kidney patients are experiencing. So the cost of 73% in our report stopped going out and seeing friends, 68% cancelled holidays, over a third had stopped their hobbies due to the rising cost of living. So as you can tell, it's had an extremely detrimental impact upon people living with kidney disease and their families. I just want to kind of hand over to Fiona a little bit to that, and maybe talk a little bit about the cost of living crisis and the impact that's had on particularly people on home dialysis too.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much. And again, if anyone's got questions about any of that, just let us know. One of the reasons we're talking about the costs, if you are on dialysis itself, are that first of all, you may be driving to your dialysis appointments, which are 3 times a week, so there's costs associated with that. But if you are on dialysis at home, your energy that you use, which is electricity and water to run the machine, so in Scotland I know you get some support for the water bills, but for the energy bills, they will be higher because all the energy bills have gone up. And so there's more money being spent by people to stay alive by running their dialysis at home. So we've been working quite hard on that. And we've had a little bit of success. For example, NHS Grampian has now put a policy in to reimburse, or is putting a policy in to reimburse for those extra costs. But what we found is in different parts of the country, not everyone was being either reimbursed or fully reimbursed for those additional costs. And what people therefore were doing who are running those machines at home, some of them were switching the heating off, but then had to turn the machines up in order to run the machines. So it's kind of not really an option to run those machines, but I just wanted to explain a little bit about how there's a very particular cost there to people who are on the home dialysis, and the people who are on dialysis in hospitals who are driving to and from the hospitals. There's a cost there as well. And again, there's just a lot of variation depending on where you live. In fact, across the whole UK, we've had a little bit of success in a few places, but that's kind of quite, an active programme at the moment. And if that's one of the reasons I think Martin and John, we came to start to talk to you in the first place about all of this. So that runs all alongside all the issues of treatment that we've just lined up. And if any of your audience want to get into any of that, we're very happy to expand on it, or you can write to us afterwards about it.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Fiona. I mean, I've thought for years now that we should have GPs prescribing heat. It's so fundamental, and I was really intrigued by the warm home prescription pilots. I mean, how do you think they're going, and is that something you'd like to see rolled out across the country as a whole? Yeah, so just to explain to people, in some places that included Tayside, wasn't it? I think GPs were to a group of people. I think it's more people with respiratory conditions, some heating, and our understanding is they went very well. But from some of the questions that I think you've helped us to ask in Parliament, actually, what we've heard back is these are very much local decisions rather than sort of a national decision. But we would very much like to see that, and we'd love to see more of that rolled out in Scotland. And if there are people who are listening to that, come and talk to us about how we could do that
and focus on people who need that additional level of support. And what we should also say is, if you have kidney disease and you have anemia, that also makes you very cold. So it's an extra fun thing to that, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
So I think another question just popped up, hasn't it? Yeah.
Yes, it has. I'll just put it on. Yep, Charles Smith is asking, are there any known post-COVID incidents of effects on the kidneys?
So that's a good question. Judith already talked a little bit about the sort of impact of COVID on people with kidney disease, which did cause all governments actually to advise people to stay at home or shield for quite a long period of time. And from that, we've gone directly into the cost of living crisis, which is not the best, is it? There has been quite a lot of work on the impact of COVID on people with kidney disease, which has really backed up the need to keep getting vaccinated, although vaccination isn't quite as effective as it is on all members of the public, for example, but it still does build up as you go along, and there are treatments for people there as well. So in terms of the longer term effect on this, I am aware of some people kind of experiencing long COVID for a period of time afterwards, and there have been some people who their COVID infection has brought on kidney failure for them as well. So, but on the other hand, there have been quite a number of people who have kidney disease and who've had COVID who have made a good recovery. So, but because of that extra risk, that's why it's important to keep on being protected and to be aware that there are treatments for you if you have later stage kidney disease.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. We've got the third video to play.
Yes, and I was going to introduce that, wasn't I? So yes, so this is a chap called Phoenix that we've been doing some work with, and he decided that really the way in which he referred to it, he said it feels like we're being priced out of existence by having kidney failure, and really how it felt to him to be cold and be running one of those machines at home. So do stop for a minute and listen to what Phoenix has to say. Thank you.
It's bad enough having to choose between heating and eating. I've already switched my heating off. But when you've got a dialysis machine to run as well, it's not really something you have an option on doing. So I should imagine there are a lot of kidney dialysis patients that are scared, very scared.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Coming straight from the mouth about the hardships that people are having to endure, it's actually like turning a drama into another worsening crisis that they're going through. Yeah. So on that, you touched on it earlier on, Judith, about the cost of living crisis, and can you tell us about what Care UK has actually been doing to help people with kidney disease through this cost of living crisis? And there's another thing that's just struck me. We might come back to later on, but personally speaking, even in the local Forth Valley where I'm a patient and I'm on the diabetic screening and I'm going along to get my eyes tested, if you could also touch on something maybe in your replies to these things about as you get older, you feel the cold more. Strangely enough, I'm feeling colder down in London than I do in Scotland at the moment, but that's a strange one. But, as you get older, you feel the cold more. Is that affecting people in the cost of living crisis when you should be turning your heat up in your home, Judith, more than normal?
Well, that gentleman in question, as Phoenix had turned his thermostat down to 12, which is essentially off, and he talked about, you'll have seen him there actually in the video with several layers on. He was going to kind of bed at night doing his nocturnal dialysis with thermals on, a sleeping bag, a hat on. This is just an example of one person that's experiencing that. There are many people with kidney disease on dialysis going through that same experience, unfortunately, as Phoenix is experiencing, aren't there, Fiona?
Yeah, there are. And also, if you're poorly with kidney disease, you may not feel like getting up and jumping around the room and doing star jumps to warm yourself up.
Exactly.
So there is that as well. People do tend to become a little bit deconditioned and spend quite a lot of time sitting down as well. So we always, where people can, we always encourage people to do a bit of walking, because that's good for you anyway, if you can. So, and as you're right, as people get older, they tend to get colder as well, don't they? But I just wanted to mention it's a particular facet of kidney disease.
And I think another thing of concern is for people on home dialysis, their dialysis machines themselves have to operate within certain temperatures to operate properly. So that's a concern.
Okay. So is there anything else to say about what we're doing, Judith, that you wanted to touch on before I go on?
I did refer before to earlier in our patient advocacy grants and counselling services all provide support to people with kidney disease and their families, along with our young adult kidney group and Facebook patient support group. But also we have a hub called Kidney Kitchen, which helps patients eat well and save money. So it offers kind of information, recipes and Kidney Kitchen videos. And we had one of our Kidney Kitchen magazines was Eat Well, Spend Less. So we've been doing that, offering kind of, as we said, kind of money saving examples of recipes for people to use. And unfortunately, in terms of the grants itself, we saw in the last kind of year a 285% increase in the previous year in the amount of money given in our heating bills grants, and a 30% increase in the previous year in the amount of money we've given in assistance grants. And that's really reflective of the cost of living crisis.
Good point. And we don't get any government funding for any of that. And it should also be said that you have to have a special diet. If you're at late stage kidney failure, if you're on dialysis. If you have a transplant, it's different. And we're going to allow 5 minutes to talk about transplantation, so I can see more questions on that, and that's on our list anyway. Yeah. But probably to finish off with, because it's good to finish on more positive, some good things people can do here. But yeah, so just to say that there's an extra cost in there as well, because you have to eat food that is lower in some of those things. You remember I talked about itching earlier. Well, that can be to do with too much cheese in your diet, things like that. So it's kind of, you have to eat a slightly more restricted diet, which has additional costs on it. So right, we've got some more questions. Yeah, so should we have a go at those?
I'll take them in reverse order, because I think just where we are, Keith Bartley Photography is asking, how do we donate?
Well, that would be fantastic. Just go to our website, kidneycareuk.org, and you'll be able to find that information in there. Different ways to get, I think it's get involved, and there's different ways you can get involved. You can run all sorts of everything from tombolas to fundraising to fun events, to go to run the London Marathon for us, or many other marathons are available, and runs and things are available as well. So thank you, Keith, for that. We really, really appreciate anyone who wants to get involved with our work in whichever way it is. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm conscious of time. We're flying through the time like nobody's business. And there's so much more we can discuss on this issue. Obviously, we've touched on the issues of mental health and things as well. Is there anything more you'd like to say? What support are there for the patients on concern with mental health?
I think we've previously referred to that for Kidney Care UK. Itself has its counselling service and young adult kidney peer support group, but there's essentially not enough formal support to address the mental health and psychosocial needs of people with kidney disease in Scotland and the UK as a whole. And like what we have found is none of the 84 renal units in the UK employs the recommended number of social workers for the kidney patient population, and only 5% employ the recommended number of psychologists for their patients. And in paediatric care, that's children, over the past 15 years, psychology and social work services have decreased by 21%. So that really shows you kind of what is happening at the moment. And Fiona has been actively involved kind of in, we'll chat about psychosocial support and our report and manifesto for change.
Lovely, yeah. Okay, so I'll go on to that then, shall I? And then we'll go on to the transplantation, if that's okay, Martin.
Yeah.
John. So yes, so Kidney Care UK last year, we spoke to the Scottish Government. We went to something called the Scottish Renal Association to talk about all of this. But we've put out a manifesto for improving the physical, the mental health and social care for people with kidney disease, because as everyone will know, we offer support in those areas as well. And so we're asking for people who have those needs to be identified. So in other words, people to have the opportunity to be assessed if they want, and if they want to have that level of support, for more staff to be trained in providing that. And we're asking for Scottish Government who are coming out with some answers, coming out with a mental health work quite shortly, actually. So we'd like to kind of pursue what we've been asking for over this period of time, and what people with kidney disease are telling us every day that they need. We've taken this work around the whole of the United Kingdom, and we'd like to do some more on that up here in Scotland, because as Judith said, there's not enough of that available at the moment. We can fill part of the gap, but that we cannot fill the whole gap, because that is part of what the hospitals and indeed the GPs and others are there to do. But we can work with people, work with those organisations, as well as our politicians and policymakers, to change that, because there is a real need, and it is very difficult to engage with your mental health, your physical health, if you don't know where your next meal's coming from too. So they are all linked up together there.
And I wholly, support what Fiona's saying again, and emphasise that too. Particularly, this week is Mental Health Awareness Week too.
It's coming across that we need to provide some peace of mind to people who are in an already demanding and stressful situation. And going back to the Keith Bartley's point about how do we donate, so it might not just be in monetary terms, as you said, it might be in just starting up something locally, getting more people involved, and that sounds like something that all of us should be doing in our own communities.
Absolutely. And if you have in your own communities people who need that level of help, of course, do direct them to us as well, because we and our advocacy officers for Scotland, because we can help, but we can also maybe help with local meetings and all of those things as well. So there's different ways to get involved with that. So. And
also policy-wise, please help us campaign for change too, because
so you're kind of,
yes, please.
Right.
Yeah.
Is it transplantation now? Do I feel as though that might be the time?
Yeah, it's over to transplantation and organ donation. To you, Fiona.
Indeed, and I can see there's a question up there about that as well, about our animals. So I'll come on to that in a minute, Hashby Stumble, if that's okay. Let's just do a little bit of a background to that. So we've talked already about the kind of the impact of kidney disease, later stage kidney disease, and some of the issues there. We've mentioned that actually there are a number of people who haven't yet been identified with kidney disease. That all happens in primary care. So if you've got diabetes, as we said already, make sure you get your kidney checks when you have your annual checks. If you think that you have any level of kidney disease or anything else comes up, speak to your GP about that, because it's very easy to test for kidney disease. I should have just said that earlier, actually. It's a blood and a urine test. So the tests are quite easy, and there's a lot. And there's actually new medications as well, and they can all happen much, much earlier and prevent many, many people from going down to needing dialysis. And that is, of course, our key mission. However, having said all of that, there will be people whose kidneys have failed already due to genetic reasons, or it's already happened or happening. And of course, they need just as much of our support and your support too. And one option for them is transplantation. So the first best option is to identify and prevent deterioration of your kidneys. The next best option is to have a transplant. It's not available. It's not something that everybody could have if you're too poorly, for example. But we do have, as Organ Donation Week, that starts later in the month. Sorry, that starts later in the year, on the 18th of September. But in fact, it's for everybody all of the time. And Scotland's done some really excellent work on organ donation. So overall, we have just under 7,000 people in the United Kingdom waiting for a transplant. There's 529 people waiting in Scotland, and about 8 out of 10 of them waiting for a kidney transplant. It's the most transplanted organ. Up to this point this year, so from April 22 to the end of 2022, there were 299 transplants in Scotland, and 73 of those were living donations. So I don't know if people know, but you can donate your kidney as a living donor as well. That's about a third of it. So it's a really important part of all of this. And there are some things that people can do around all of that. So we've got the Scottish Government has put a lot of support behind all of this, and it's got a great scheme called the special gift. Sorry, it's called the special gift. So if you Google living donation in Scotland, you'll be able to find information about the special gift, which tells you, if you wanted to become a living kidney donor, how that could work for you. And it's a fantastic thing that some people do. At the same time, if you die in a situation where you might be able to donate your kidneys, so that would be, for example, in intensive care or such. The law was changed to, as we talked about earlier, to deemed authorisation, or it's often called presumed consent. So in Scotland, it is assumed that you might want to become a donor if you were to die in those circumstances, and it's not something that anyone wants to talk about. So it's one of those things that it's much easier if you tell your family what your views are, and if there's a route today, you might want to tell people, what your views are. So at the same time, your family will always be asked if there was any reason that you might not have wanted to become a donor. So if you like, the balance has changed with that change in law, which was March 2021 in Scotland, so that it would be assumed that you would want to be a donor if you have not expressed your wishes either way in life, but your family has the opportunity to say or to represent your views. And it is just the most extraordinary and amazing act of generosity to give someone else life, either after you've passed away or with the case of a kidney in life as well. So it's quite an amazing thing. There's a lot of support for that up here in Scotland for you to learn lots more about it. So really, it's down to a few questions, I suppose, about people there. And there's the one question that's come up, which is about the future and where we go. So the best thing you can do at the moment, of course, is to talk to your families, and you can go onto the organ donation register and put your own name on it if you want to become a donor. And you can just Google organ donor. It's very, very easy to find. So for the future, there are different pieces of work going on in America, actually. So in America, that people are looking at animal models. So there was some work done last year that people might know about, where a heart, I think it was a pig heart, that was given to somebody needing a transplant. So it's the first time that's ever happened, and there's been a lot of learning from that. And there's a lot of further learning going on about whether that's a good thing to do, whether it's safe, and the right way to go forward. The other piece of work that's happening there, should I say, is also using artificial intelligence and actually making a kidney. So actually making a kidney using stem cells, which is, again, those are all a long, long way off, and they are things that for the future that people who are waiting for might need a transplant are very, very interested in it. And I think it's good to see that those different innovations are going on. But at the same time, at the moment, we are where we are, which is that there are more people now waiting for a transplant than there were prior to COVID, because unfortunately the transplant system had to be suspended for a period of time. And so the best things that anyone here can do is think of the people we spoke to you about earlier, and just let your family know, or go onto the organ donation website and let your wishes be known. I hope that helps. Oh, we have another question as well.
Another question, yep. They're coming in thick and fast, which is really good.
Fantastic. So if you had a kidney stone as a youngster, does that prevent you from being a donor? I don't think so. I think that, but I'm not a doctor. I know that if you have certain different conditions, sometimes that can be more challenging as well. But I've never come across that particular one. Each organ will be considered on its own merits and the health of the person that was becoming a donor. So, however, depending on how bad your kidney stones were and whether they affected kidney function, that would be a big question, especially if you're looking to become a living donor. So it's kind of a judge on its merits rather than give a very, very general, more general answer. So I hope that helps.
Yep, I think I'll just take the question off screen now. That's us up to date with questions at the moment. We still have 5 minutes of the show to go. So if you have something biting at you that you want an answer to, do fire it in as quickly as you can. We've sort of got a quick update from our friends in Falkirk, but so we'll maybe just bring in the team just now to join us for a few minutes before we get the final closing remarks. So
hi. Any questions?
And the lads are on mute, which is an infectious problem with live streaming.
So that's nail plants.
Amateur mistake, amateur hour. I do it all the time.
Should be a
Just
play written out.
understand our accents.
Yeah. So apologies, lads, for not bringing you in early, but we've had, as you've been listening to the show, we've been absolutely packed with information.
Mm-hmm.
How's it been over the last couple of weeks in Falkirk and at the hub? Is there any updates you want to let us all know about?
Well, I've been in contact with one of the locals here, and I'll not give too much away because it's a potential video for this podcast, and it's basically all I can give because it's a really interesting, so I want to kind of save it for when it gets released. But it's basically about a ship that was built on the Clyde, and it was one of the first of 9 ships, and it's the only one that survived. It was built in 1836 or round about there, and it's went through 5 different generations. So it had its original use, then it got changed for something else, then something else, then something else, and then it got restored. It was found in Hawaii, and they've restored it, and they want to try and bring it back to the Clyde along with another ship. But we'll find out more when we get round to filming it.
Yeah,
and,
that does sound quite interesting.
Yeah. Clyde shipbuilding past, but also the preservation of it for today as well, bringing that back. It's a local enthusiast historian, amateur historian, so that will be good. And the other community interest interview we've got coming up is one of the local hospitality cafes in Johnny's constituency here in Falkirk on the Coo Wind, and it's just basically seeing how they're getting on and how they were affected by COVID, and how they're getting back in the hospitality sector back on the course again now that we're that's behind us, but still we're having the impact. So that's basically a couple of programs we're going to be working on in the coming days.
So there's another question coming here.
Yep, that's grand, lad. So we'll just get closing remarks from Judith and Fiona. We've one more question, which has just popped up. I'll put it up. Chris Fisher is asking, is being a donor of an organ an opt-out thing in Scotland?
Yes, it is. So what I was just talking about was there that sometimes it's called deemed authorisation, but yes, it is. The law changed in March 2021 in Scotland, and your family will still always be consulted, but the law has changed that you would be considered to be a donor unless there's a reason that you have said in life that you don't want to be, or your family knows a reason why you would not want to be. So that is a positive step that can help. Thank you. The questions. I should see people discussing that positively in the chat. So.
That's smashing. Do you want to give us any final messages you'd like everyone to take away from the show tonight?
I think we have kind of just our final message would be take a moment to consider your health and look after your kidneys and add your name to the organ donor register. And if you need help, advice or support on kidney disease, please contact Kidney Care UK. Our telephone number is 01420 541 424. You can access our website at kidneycareuk.org. And if you're concerned that you might have kidney disease or issues around kidneys, kidney issues, please do not hesitate to contact your GP. Preventing your kidneys deteriorating and detecting it early are vital. And really just a thank you for inviting us to the live stream today to talk about Kidney Care UK and the work that we do. We really appreciate it.
No, thank you for joining us. I know when John and I met you online, we were just blown away by the information and thought, more people need to hear this. It really is quite eye-opening, and the more I learn about kidney disease, the more frightening I think it all sounds. So we've really got a huge job of work to do to get society in a much better place where it's, stop it before it becomes, uncurable.
Yeah, I agree with what Martin and echo what Martin has just basically said, that just through this last hour, I think we're probably all going away from here thinking a bit more about who we know in our own family, our own friends, and how we can work and look after ourselves as an individual a bit more. So I'll be taking your advice, I can assure you of that, and I'll make sure to look after him as well.
Definitely, because we look forward to working with thank everyone for all the questions. We look forward to working with you and to telling you later on about our organ donation event in Westminster as well, that we'd love to invite you to.
You have a Scotland office?
We appreciate you. Yep, echo there. We really appreciate you being on the show tonight. Next week, which is the only other show we have in May because of the different holiday Mondays, we have Ben Lake MP, who is a Plaid Cymru member, joining us. A number of people asked on our very first show for updates on what was happening in Wales. And John and I, while we like to pretend we know everything, we really don't know much about what's happening in Wales, but Ben does, and Ben will be available to answer people's questions and have a general chat about what's happening here at Westminster and in Wales. So thank you very much, everyone, for tonight, and we look forward to seeing you all again in a week's time.
And thank you again from
Thank
me.
you.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks.
For
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Look after yourselves. Bye all. Bye. Bye.
Thanks again. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.